To the
Sunday, day 3, just leaving the hotel and we're on his way.
Our first stop's going to be at Tyne-Cot, and then we're going to go around to Vancouver Corner to look at the gas attack there in 1915, and over to Langemarck to see how the Germans commemorate their dead from the Great War. And then we'll stop for our lunch. We've got our lunch again today down at the Hoog, and we're going to have some time there as well to go into the Trench Museum part of Hoog and have a look at that. It's a section of reconstructed trench, British and German, and there's some nice artifacts to have a look at that, to have a look at in there. And by artifacts I don't mean me, but there's you'd be able to try on a First World War helmet, stick each other with a 17-inch bayonet. Now you can't do that because the paperwork's impossibly long, and there's a few other bits and bobs there. And then this afternoon we're going to head up to Polygon Wood to have a look at the Black Watch Corner Memorial to the Black Watch Regiment that fought there in 1914 and have a chat about some of the stories there. Then we'll go round to the far side of the wood, and we're going to walk into the wood, and those who want to come with me to walk to the bunker, Scott's bunker that's in the wood, we'll do that as well. And then we're going to go down to Zillebeek, to the Aristocrats Cemetery, and that's an interesting cemetery from the early period of the war. And we'll finish up at Hill 60, which is a big area of preserved battlefield with mine craters and bunkers, and we'll have a chance to see one of those Messines mines from 1917, a very, very impressive crater. And we'll finish up there, I think, probably about 5, something like that. We'll be back at the hotel for about 5:30.
Right folks, here we are in Tyne-Cot Cemetery, and as you can see, well no you can't, and as you can see, we are up at the top end, and if you're a returning viewer, you may have seen us in here last year, and unfortunately we didn't get that much last year because we lost quite a bit of it, but we'll hopefully get quite a bit more this time round. And
but they couldn't identify who he was. And on most battlefields, 50% of the dead were not identified or not found or not recovered. So what do you do with them? In previous wars they'd never been commemorated, but again Kipling and many others felt it'd be unjust for the families of those men to have nothing to see, and that's how these memorials to the missing come into being. Kipling pushed for the idea to create memorials where they would be listed by name so that people could go along and physically touch the panel or the name on the wall for them to feel that there is at least, we'd call it closure now, but
right.
Camera lights, action. Here we are, me and Barry, we're here this morning to commemorate loss of my uncle John Edward Gledhill. Passchendaele, 26th of September 1917. And I come here to pay homage to one of my relatives who nobody else in family knows anything about, but we do. We just pay respects to him, John Edward Gledhill.
Yeah.
Thanks, Barry.
Right, folks, we're now going to the bottom end of the cemetery so we can look up from the original entrance, and so we'll see you all down there. So you explain what we're looking at. Oh, course, we've got windy conditions. But what we have here is a bunker. This is facing the Germans or the British?
Well, these are German bunkers.
These are
facing British who were coming up.
yeah.
This is one of the highest points.
Yeah, so the Allies were over there, and the Germans,
They had higher ground.
and they were over here, and this was a German bunker.
British soldiers are being told to use Mark 1 gas masks. So you've got a handkerchief that you used to blow your nose with, or put the knots in the corner and put on your head when you're sat on the beach, or you've got a spare pair of socks and you've got to pee on that and hold that up against your face, and that's your only protection against gas. I mean, that's not going to be massively effective, as you can imagine. And what happened when they released the gas, the French, we were not very good at sharing intelligence information with the French, so we didn't tell them that gas was coming. So when the gas was released against their troops, these green clouds overwhelming their trenches and men are choking to death in the trenches, you can understand that they panicked. And they were French territorial soldiers, so slightly older men, and also French Algerians, so colonial troops. And basically their line broke just beyond that village there of Langemarck, which we're going to head over to shortly. And the Germans broke through and the line fell back. And here was the 1st Canadian Division, and over there were British troops. And the 1st Canadian Division, whose memorial this really kind of commemorates them, was an interesting formation. They were the original Canadians to join up at the very beginning of the First World War. And Canada was a young nation. It was now a Dominion nation, so it was self-governing. It didn't have to join in the First World War, but it was obviously loyal to what they called the mother country, which is Britain, so it joined the war effort. And this 1st Canadian Division, 20,000 Canadian soldiers, 70% of them were born in Britain. So that shows the site. Look at the size of this. It's physically smaller than Tyncott, but there's 44,000 Germans buried in here. So it's a very different cemetery. And the kind of feel of it, you know, the kind of comments that you get, it's oppressive, it's depressing, and the atmosphere is different because of these trees. But it's part of the German philosophy of the way they commemorate their dead. As I mentioned, with that old cemetery, there's now a playground in Polkapel. These are oak trees and they're planted on the graves of warriors, so it's a German tradition to do that. And the Germans believe in death renewing life, so that you go to a lot of civil cemeteries in Germany and they're very much overgrown because that's the kind of philosophy. Let nature take over and life renew out of the burial of the dead. Now, after the First World War, the Germans had cemeteries right across these battlefields, just like Britain and the Commonwealth and many other nations. And they were given exactly the same rights to bury their dead. And if we look at a map of this battlefield, there were lots more German cemeteries than there are now. Now there's 3 main cemeteries in this area. This one here at Langemarck, one at a place called Menin, and one to the north at Władysław. And what happened, they remained like that until the end of the Second World War, when Germany was now split in 2, East and West Germany, and West German, the West German government, that's where the headquarters of the German Volksbund, that's their War Graves Commission, was located, and they were the ones responsible for all these cemeteries. Now, in the post-Second World War world, there wasn't a lot of money in Germany, and the priority for money was not the commemoration of the dead from 2 world wars. So the German Volksbund decided to rationalise, basically, to cost cut. And they looked at the First War cemeteries and decided to close the vast majority of them, exhume the dead and move them into Massgraben, or Kameradengraben, comrades' graves, and that's what we've got here. So half the total of the burials in this cemetery are in this plot here, this mass grave. And they were moved from all over Belgium into this site. Polderpearl, that cemetery that we saw, that's now the playground, some of the men were brought in here. And they didn't exhume a body, put a body into a coffin and then bring it here. They got boxes, and they literally, there's no other way to describe it, they rammed as many bones as they could into each box. Made no mention of the names of the men that went in those boxes, and they brought them into here. And a lot of people think this is a big pit that the Germans just kind of chucked the dead into, but it's a crypt. So underneath here there is an ossuary. There's a little opening behind me there with steps that go down into it, and it's a vault full of these boxes full of the bones. So even if the German government decided they wanted to rebury these men, there's absolutely no way they could easily pull out Schmidt from Hans, from whatever, and then individually rebury them because they're in these boxes in this vault. And
That's that was the first soldiers.
too wide an angle.
For a couple of terms, he went to Grantham King's School, Grammar School. Don't know why.
We have a trench system that we're going to go through, and I'm recording on my GoPro, so I've got my hands free to steady myself as we go through. But this is the top of it, and you see there's the poppies, there's the what would be barbed wire. Of course this isn't barbed wire, but that's how they string it out. We've just had a little bit of a talk and shown us a few things like some shells and bayonets and even a Lee Enfield 303 rifle. And we're going to go down in the trench now. So caught this on my camera, and now we're going to go in. Right, we're going down into a trench, folks. A German trench to start with. And that's what the planking looks like. It's a German fire trench. Yeah. And the way you can tell that this is a reproduction is that these sandbags are actual concrete. And we're now coming round into a British trench. That's again shown by the duck boards, which are totally different.
Oh yes.
So,
Yeah.
break it off. That was the conductor.
Who's left that bayonet in that state? Okay. So there we are, so you can see you've been in the trenches now. So we're going to rejoin the coach. I've got to go and hand this in, I better not wander around the rest of the building.
And, this is the monument to the who? Or was this a monument to Alan?
This is Black Watch.
Black Watch.
And it says there, it tells you. Regular TA and service battalion at Black Watch.
And
If you figure, deaths, 8,960.
Black Watch here, one of the craft regiments.
it's here we are in the Black Watch again.
Opposite Polygon Wood.
Opposite Polygon Wood, facing the Black Watch statue. We've heard spiel time again. So we found ourselves a little place of comfort to sit down on. Much to the we'd have to turn. Much to the and there we have a disappointed Leicester supporter. Yeah, there you have it. Folks, here we are in Polygon Wood Cemetery.
Where we were at this corner, is in front. I think up the far end of the road that we're on now, up that corner is where he won his VC.
Alan's gone up on top.
Yeah.
He's walked up on top. Yeah.
It'll be different, isn't it?
Oh, it's got to be different.
Going up there, look.
We've established he's not an Aborigine though.
Where's the cross of sacrifice?
Sorry?
Cross of sacrifice.
The other side.
Oh, you've got the phone on them.
Change, you know, they have to think about that as well. They did an experiment a few years ago where they actually turned a very small cemetery into what they called a climate change cemetery to try and plant different things in it to see A, what it looked like, and then gauge the reaction of people that went there, and then B, to see, you know, kind of how effective it would be. But it was such a radical change. All the grass was removed, it's all gravel, and the plants were African plants, Middle Eastern plants that don't need a lot of water and things like that. Stop. And the bunker that, if you're going to come with me, we're going to go look at, was named after him. It's called Scott's Bunker. And he was an officer who joined up at the very beginning of the Great War in the Australian Imperial Force, so that's the Australian soldiers. And they had a very small regular army, made up of what they described as militia battalions. It was disbanded on the outbreak of the war, and the creation of the Australian Imperial Force, the AIF, led to numbered battalions, and there was about a couple of dozen of those in the first two Australian divisions. The first group of them went to Gallipoli, and they landed at Gallipoli alongside New Zealand troops, forming what was called ANZAC, the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, and then British troops and also French troops landed at Gallipoli on the 25th of April 1915. But for Australia and New Zealand, that was the creation of a change in their kind of whole country's history, where they've gone from, as they both have done, fighting on a small scale in the Boer War to fighting on a big scale in a world war. So that became Anzac Day, 25th of April, which is commemorated every year in Australia and New Zealand, commemorating those original landings at Gallipoli in 1915. And it's kind of superseded 11th of November in those countries as a way to remember the dead from not just the Great War now, of course, but from all conflicts in which their nations have been a part of. So Scott was an original AIF man. He served at Gallipoli in 1915, and then he moved to Egypt, and then they went to the Western Front, and they took a nucleus of original AIF personnel, and they created what were called PUT battalions, where they take a certain amount of men from that unit and create a new unit out of it. So you had a central core of veterans who had combat experience, battlefield experience, to kind of take that battalion into action. Bunker, or Scott's Post, it's a German bunker, probably from 1916, when this would have been about 4 or 5 miles behind the front line, German front line, where they would have had their heavy artillery units dug in here, their big guns firing up to the front line around Hoog. So this was the kind of artillery support for the German front line on the Bellewaerde Ridge, where we walked yesterday, where the Royal Engineers grave was, for example. And this bunker was constructed not as a defensive position, but as a headquarters for the gun units, the gun batteries. So they would have had their officers in here, their signallers with static telephone communications out to the gun sites, pigeons, of course, as well, which were big messengers on both sides. In the First World War, the Germans were the first to establish a military pigeon training school in Berlin at Spandau before the First World War, and pigeons were they were the email of World War I. Pigeons were trained to be released from locations like this to go back to lofts. Hill, this is Hill 60. It was known as Lover's Knoll before the war. It was an artificial hill because they constructed this railway came here, and the spoil went that way and it went that way, and it created this artificial mound. It was called Lover's Knoll because courting Belgian couples used to come up there of a summer's evening and did what Belgian courting couples do best, which is read each other poetry, of course. But it took on a somewhat more ominous tone during the First World War. So this is taken from behind the British trenches that you can see. Bits of sandbags and so on here. There are field graves you can see on the photograph. I bet whoever that was is no longer have a grave on the many gates. We've got the original railway bridge, the new one, just on the edge of just here. And the trenches actually cut the railway cutting. So the British trenches went one side, the Germans cut the railway further up. In this area,
This is
the soil. The soil was thrown up
crater
in the air, and you tried to
created by a
disperse it so it went all
underground
the way
mine.
around the area of the crater. So huge chunks of soil, clay, and detritus came cascading down onto the German trenches, filling them in, demolishing dugout entrances, wiping out machine gun and trench mortar positions. So the actual area of destruction was much, much bigger than this actual mine crater that we can see today. But I mean, look at the size of it. I mean, it's typical of the mines that were used in that battle. I brought American groups to craters like this, and they kind of walk up to the side and go, "Oh my God, I didn't know they used the atomic bomb back then." Yeah. But you know, kind of the uninitiated, that's what it looks like. So it's not coming from above, remember, it's coming from below. So you're looking at months and months and months of tunnelling preparation. British tunnellers, in this area Canadian tunnellers, and then eventually Australian tunnellers working on this tunnel system. One coming from the area of the dump, so
railway line to our right, to the left of the railway line coming this way, and up to the Caterpillar, and another going from the other side of the railway coming underneath Hill 60. And that mine blew a chunk out the side of the hill, which you'll see, creating a kind of a crescent-shaped crater, whereas this one created a perfect crater and completely destroyed the German second line positions here. So when the men went over the top, like I said, there was almost no opposition as they moved through here. So
This is the duck boards. Well, they look a bit dodgy. They've got steps going down, steps going up, and then going round there. So I'm going to turn it off until we get up at top. So view from the top, all the hill, the shell craters. That's the shell craters. I'll film again when we get a bit further on, because I'm not so steady on my feet these days, even though this path thing is wide, but it just has a bit of spring in it. So, and that's the monument to the people, or the soldiers who fought in this area. On Hill 60. There's the road, Hill 60. And that's the top of Hill 60 where troops were dug in, they fought and died on this hill to defend it. It's called Hill 60 because it's the 60 metres above sea level, and that's how all the hills got their names. All the hills with numbers got the names. It was how far above sea level they were. Okay, right folks, here we are in this town square. As you see this closely, that's the museum over there. Yeah. Where were the cloth place?
Where were the what?
Cloth.
That's Cloth Hall.
Oh, Cloth Hall.
Cloth Hall. That's the
What's
famous. That was the only thing that were remaining.
This Minster, this building here where there's a museum in, that's the Cloth Hall building.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And on this side, we've got restaurants. And more restaurants. And you say this was only building that survived, Alan?
Yeah. It was rebuilt from old photographs and old building plans. Pre-1940. So.
And got some art.
So this has been completely rebuilt.
Yeah. And a shoe shop. See luxury clothing. And this place here is where we went last night. This was called what, Alan?
Vivaldi.
Vivaldi. And that's where we had a steak and what have you last night. We've converted them two then.
Oh yeah. Oh, I go back there, but I haven't got another €70.
No.
Cheap and cheerful.
A Japanese restaurant where they do sushi. I presume they do sushi. And yeah, there's a restaurant over there. The jewellers. And the Mary, and then there's the place that we're going to go to get a burger and fries and take it back to the hotel. So that's about it really for the square. So yeah, What do you think of this holiday then? How's it gone?
First impressions.
Yeah, a review of the holiday.
Well, trip down to Dover were horrendous. Because it's silly early time,
Yeah.
which we still can't get our heads round now. But anyway,
Which was what?
2:30 in the morning, 2:45,
Yeah,
pick-up point, and
Yeah.
then going to middle of nowhere for another coach to get us.
yeah,
But anyway, tired first day, but excitement of getting into
yeah.
evening.
And then an Novotel hotel.
Over, go out, get a burger, get a beer, sit down, experience the ambience. That were good.
Yeah,
Then we got into travelling, well organised, use of 2 really good drivers who knew the stuff, and an excellent guide. Where could it go all wrong? It didn't first day, it were excellent. Second day, after a night out on tiles where we overindulged in 8% brew, after an excellent steak, took its toll. Because next day, we were flagging a bit, but morning, again, really good. We missed out on a couple of experiences, but that happens.
yeah,
But excellent guide, driving, and then afternoon, it turned into a bit of a damp squib. 2 counts. We got caught up listening to West Ham Leeds game, result of which were really significant. We lost. And guide suddenly made some changes to itinerary, which, I mean, scheme of things, does it matter? But it affected me and Barry, and we were just a bit put out. But all in all, I'd say it's been an excellent holiday, good value for money, but be glad to get home. No, we've got a lot of travelling tomorrow, it's going to be grim. I'll do it again, but not so soon. That's my initial impressions.
Well, folks, just to add to what Alan said, yes, we had to meet up at 2:45 in the morning, and it turns out that they say that this was to add extra time on to give in case we had problems at the port. It's fair enough, but it was a hard decision. But anyway, then they took us to Castleford, although the taxi driver almost went to Wakefield. But luckily he'd fastened it into his sat-nav, so it took us to Castleford. We got on the bus at Castleford, which then turned out to be a feeder bus, which we weren't expecting, but there you go. And it took about 9 hours to get down to stop 24. Where we were told, oh, you're going to get on your coach now, which is going to take you the rest away. And guess what, folks? It was the same coach that we came down on, which they said was our feeder coach, which suddenly became our rail coach. But this time, of course, we did have us select seats, so that were all right. And as I say, that we had a lovely burger and a beer that night, and maybe get a bit of an early, well, I say early night, we got there late anyway. So anyway, next day were great. We went to various places, including a museum. We had a nice meal at this place. We went round, and as I say, we went round the museum, which you'll have seen already. And yes, it was great. Come back, and as Alan said, we went out in town that night because we met up with 2 Leicester City supporters Sandy and Dave, and we went for a steak, marvellous steak. I got mine, I wanted it rare, and it seems that over here rare means blue, what we say blue in England. So yes, so that was that. So we then went down to the local pub, and we got a big glass of beer, which came in a glass which must have been half a litre. It was a big glass, and we had that, and it turns out that it were 8% proof. Having already had a glass of beer called Julia, not Julia, Wiper Times, which was 6.4% proof. So it was very, very mind-bending, to say it. Anyway, so then we got up Sunday morning. Breakfasts were alright. Quick shout for breakfasts. They were a bit average, just average for a hotel. And then we again in the morning was good. Yeah, as Alan said, it was okay. Went to places that I'd never seen, but Alan had. So for me, that was good, because I'd not been to some of these places I went to. The guide again was marvellous, but by the time we get to the afternoon, where everybody's flagging, because of the simple fact that we spent a lot of time at these stops, 40 minutes here, an hour there, and so it was starting to tell. We went back, we had us meal, they took us round the trench that you've seen, and also, and like Alan has already said, they made 2 changes to the itinerary, which threw us all out of step. And then we finished up at Hill 60. Went through Polygon Wood this time, we found the bunker. But yeah, all in all, up to this point in time, it's been a great trip, Obviously a little bit sad that Leeds got beat, and looks like it's end of the road, but who knows. But yes, so I'll see you all tomorrow when we start to return back to Leeds. So it's good night from him, and it's good night from me.